They doomed Dragon Ball Daima, who made this video. Totally not Mark. Never heard of this guy. But I kind of feel like Dragon Ball Daima missed the mark quite a bit. By quite a bit.
Not everything with the Dragon Ball name can crash Crunchyroll after all. Or at least that seems to be the case with Dragon Ball Daima. Despite the huge success of Sparking Zero pushing the Dragon Ball name to the forefront of people's minds, Daima has only been doing, well, okay? Its first episode with its many Z-era redraws found immense traction across the internet, and its debut on Netflix ranked in the top 10 for kids shows, but since then it's kind of faded into the background, failing to reach the heights of the previous series. Looking online, it's easy to paint a picture of why that might be the case. Its unenthusiastic, borderline non-existent marketing campaign certainly shoulders some of that responsibility.
I haven't seen any marketing at all for this show. Like, anywhere. Like, I saw a couple of trailers when they dropped before it came out, but now I'm not seeing anything except people talking about redraws. Like, they keep messing up the animation and then changing the animation. That's all I'm seeing. And they have patch notes for a freaking anime. Like, what? What?
Responsibility, but given that it's a new Dragon Ball series with years of development, it begs the question, what the hell happened? Unsurprisingly, the answers are actually a lot more complicated and interesting than I initially thought. Is Dragon Ball Daima less popular than expected? Almost certainly, but to help me understand why and to get some concrete, reliable answers, I decided to reach out once again to my good friend Miles to see what his data says on this subject specifically.
Well, I could tell you that a lot of people just don't want to watch them as kids. They wanted a continuation of Super, even though Super wasn't really that good. And that last movie wasn't that good, especially compared to Broly.
For my clients, I provide a monthly report where I talk about estimated viewership on platforms and all sorts of other things. And one of those elements I look up is social media engagement.
When it comes to mapping out and gauging the popularity of the latest releases from Japan, Miles offers a bespoke service like few others. Having spent countless years in the industry, he has gained access to restricted data from various studios and clients across Japan. However, in the modern age, that can only paint part of the picture. There are countless avenues a potential viewer can take to both become aware of and watch their favorite TV shows these days. And so, in addition to this restricted data, Miles has additional methods of scraping key data points from the likes of Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube while monitoring the activity on various streaming platforms. He even monitors the activity of notable pirating websites to paint the most comprehensive picture possible.
For the month of October, so this is data covering October 1st to 31st, Dandadan is first in terms of every popularity metric, so it's discussed on social media about 40 times more than the median anime of the season. Whereas Dragon Ball Daima is the 5th overall most popular anime of the season, and its social media rating is 7.4 times more than the median anime of the season. When I did a survey in September of a broad audience of mostly self-identified anime fans, only about 40 to 50% of them were aware Dragon Ball Daima was even coming out. There are some complications to this, but what you would expect from a Dragon Ball series is that something like general interest like search volume or Wikipedia interest, or even like fanfic writing would be much more prevalent in the rating. Like Dragon Ball Daima would be shooting up. But I think there are like 3 or 4 problems here compared to something like Super, and I kind of have spelled that out for my clients. We estimate 2.7 million US viewers for Dragon Ball Daima. You know, sounds good, but if we can think of Dandadan at 5.6 million, for Dragon Ball Daima, the reasons why we speculate it did not perform as well as it could have, number one is just lack of promotion. So we see, you know, the official Dragon Ball social media accounts spending much more effort on the video game than on Daima.
The advertising was not as good as...
Well, to be fair, the video game was going to make a lot more money. Lots. With microtransactions, with... There's not really any microtransactions. They're more macro transactions, because it's like you're getting character packs and skin packs and stuff.
As it could have been, is an accusation that will come as a surprise to absolutely no one. The marketing campaign, if you can even call it that, kicked off with a reveal trailer on the 12th of October 2023 during a panel held at New York Comic-Con. The only issue is that because the event wasn't officially live-streamed, this opened the door for anyone in attendance to stream the event on their phone, and so, if you are a hardcore fan like me and were eager to see what this new announcement was as soon as possible, you might have seen the reveal like this.
Please don't be magic. Please don't be magic. Nobody asked for this. We just wanted Moro.
That's right, for many fans of Dragon Ball, please don't be Dragon Ball magic were some of the first words superimposed over the inaugural reveal. And hey look, he got his wish. It wasn't magic, it was Daima. And it always was gonna be. But what did the trailer tell the millions of Dragon Ball fans around the world? Well, let's see. There's a new villain, everyone is turned into a kid, and it was a new era? You know what?
I thought it was going to be really good. I still think it's really good. I haven't watched a lot of the episodes. I watched the first 3 episodes. Pretty good. Not as good as Dragon Ball Super in my opinion. And I didn't even think Dragon Ball Super was all that great. The animation in Daima is incredible though. When it's incredible. When it's bad, it's bad. But like everybody thought we were going to get more Super. It's been years. It's been so long, so long since we got a continuation of Super. We got that weird movie with the superheroes, but nobody really wanted that.
But who cares? You can't always have the perfect reveal. Sometimes things go wrong, and while this was less than an ideal way to reveal this brand new story to the world, there was still a full calendar year for the powers that be to turn up the gas and really hype this brand new release up like no other. I mean, it's not like they don't have the early episodes animated at least to some degree. The show had been in production for years, even back in 2022. Heck, some of the pilot animation used in this trailer wasn't even reused for the first episode. They had time to make new animation despite having test footage that was already awesome. Super could never. So, what was this next big marketing move?
Many months later.
At the tail end of January, the powers that be from Japan saw fit to feed us, the starving masses, a Goku trailer. And what did it tell us? That there were new villains, everyone was turned into a kid, and black cheeseburgers? Thanks. Just what we all wanted. Disappointment aside, it's not a big deal. We still have ages until the new series starts.
6 months later.
Oh, come on! Alright, so as you can see, on the 16th of July 2024, over 9 months following the initial reveal trailer, we were finally given an official idea of what this series was actually about beyond Goku and everyone gets small. Again. Mere months prior to airing, the
Yeah, this time everyone got small, not just Goku.
show had only now just given viewers a decent idea of what the show was even about. An adventure through the demon realm with cool action and a plethora of interesting locations. That should have been the first trailer. That is the most basic of basic hooks. And the sad part is, it actually gets worse for Dragon Ball Daima.
Crunchyroll is the main place where people are watching it, right? And yet, Crunchyroll's not promoting it very much either. It's not exclusive to them. They have a bunch of titles that are exclusive to them, whereas Toei gave Dragon Ball to Hulu and Netflix as well. No one has a motivation to promote it because, like, why would you promote a show that a big portion of the audience is going to go somewhere else to watch it?
Toei and Shueisha, in an effort to get Dragon Ball Daima in front of as many potential viewers as possible, licensed the show out to Crunchyroll, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, and many other streaming services around the world.
And nobody's watching it. It's crazy. And like, I haven't heard much about Bleach either, though. Like, Toei, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing?
However, due to the non-exclusive nature of these deals, Toei and Shueisha removed, perhaps inadvertently, the incentive for any of these platforms to advertise this show to their enormous subscriber bases. In other words, Daima wasn't a platform original as many of these services love to tout. Why would Crunchyroll advertise Dragon Ball Daima when they know somewhere like Netflix also hosts the show and has 10 times the reach it does? Conversely, why would Netflix advertise Dragon Ball Daima when Crunchyroll gets episodes 1 week earlier than they do? Both are disincentivized to advertise the product. Not a single person gets to say, this is a Netflix original or this is an Amazon original. It is no longer a unique selling point for their service, so why even push it? It's a marketing disaster, and as a result, despite reaching as high as number 2 on Netflix's global top 10 non-English TV rankings, it has since, for a number of weeks now, fallen completely out of that list. But where this gets even more unfortunate for the likes of Dragon Ball Daima is that Shueisha, Toei, and other license holders don't seem to have a strong desire to promote TV shows like they would games or feature films. And the reason is, of course, money. You see, when it comes to marketing a movie, Shueisha and Toei's marketing team has a direct incentive to get as many people to watch as is humanly possible. And the reasoning is actually quite simple. For each ticket that's sold, these companies receive a percentage of that sale. However, when it comes to Dragon Ball Daima, Netflix specifically purchased the rights to distribute that show with a single one lump sum payment. Therefore, Toei and Shueisha don't get any additional money from Netflix when more people watch Dragon Ball Daima on their platform. You could argue that if Dragon Ball Daima did perform really well, it would lead to Netflix offering a premium for their next big show, but that approach brings a far greater degree of separation between the initial investment and the eventual return. Marketing execs want to show their bosses that their marketing campaigns directly lead to an increase.
Man, I hate the way corporations over in Japan handle anime because they just always screw it up. They do the same thing that big corporations in America do. It's always the same. They get too big for their britches, and then they want to promote the biggest thing that makes them the most money, and that kills their soul. That kills their soul. The reason that people are watching and consuming the content in the first place. I hate it so much. Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Daima is very good, not bad at all. But the way they're handling it is ruining it.
Increase in revenue. This approach with Netflix would reflect the opposite, unfortunately, despite it potentially proving profitable in the long term. But it's not like Toei and Shueisha don't stand to make any money from Dragon Ball Daima's potential success. Merchandising has always been the driving factor for Dragon Ball, so if that brand is unsuccessful, then things aren't going to sell, and that's a huge negative for them. But if that's the case, what are they waiting for? My guess is a wide release of the dub for the series. Consider Dragon Ball Super. Was it a runaway success right out the gate? Sure, it benefited from being the first new series since the 90s and was coming off the back of two very successful revival films, no pun intended, but it also didn't experience a swell of mainstream support until...
Vegito! It's astounding! This mortal really is something else.
Alguien se atreve a lastimar a mis amigos, ¡no lo perdonaré!
Super didn't even receive a simulcast until its 63rd episode, and the English dub didn't start catching up until the Tournament of Power arc was starting to begin. But once that widespread rollout started to happen, Super eventually snowballed into this absurd, uncontrollable titan. So is that what they're doing? Delaying their advertising push until a dub is available for everyone? It's no secret that Dragon Ball is one of those rare anime series that fans prefer to watch in their native language. I can understand the decision making there if that's the case. At the end of the day, marketing budgets are finite, so why spend all of this allocated money on two separate pushes? One for the sub release and one for the dub release, when the vast majority are only invested in the latter. Ultimately, it does make more sense to make a widespread push once everyone can access the version they want, but I do have my concerns. And they are unfortunately entirely independent from just a simple opinion on marketing strategies. You see, Daima is not only vastly different from Super in tone, but also in length. I wonder if Daima, because it's not a long-running series like Super was, like Dragon Ball Z was, like One Piece is, if this approach would be as fruitful because there isn't a lot of runway left to build momentum.
So my thought is that they were under the assumption that Dragon Ball Daima was going to sell itself like Super did. If you're trying to optimize your marketing strategy, I think the sit and wait for the dub strategy is not wholly inappropriate. But
yeah, nobody wanted a new story with new characters and new themes. They wanted a continuation because the manga just got so badass. People have been waiting for this since like 2016, 2017, 2018. We're going on a decade now.
But the numbers I've been seeing are not great for the theatrical release of the dub in the States. I mean, it did very poorly relative to a dozen other theatrical releases just in the last 2 or 3 months. And it makes sense if you think about it that it'd do significantly worse than like Dandadan theatrical release of the first 3 episodes, since those episodes weren't available to watch anywhere when they were in theaters. Whereas the Dragon Ball Daima first 3 episodes, you could just watch them. The thing that was novel there was this was the dub premiere.
Speaking with Miles about Daima's release solidified in my mind that the marketing and subsequent release strategies for this series were not only lacking, but in fact cannibalized the very bases that they were trying to reach. And yet, there's potentially more to this story if you'd believe it.
I was a little befuddled the fact that Dragon Ball Daima was not hyped up, and I also think maybe it's playing into the expectations that oh, the like Chibi, the kid form of Goku, and all the other characters, they were just like, okay, this is not going to be as popular in the West. We should
minimize losses. You think there was like a bit of pessimism going into the actual release from some people high up at Toei Animation, maybe?
I would imagine so. It would explain this behavior more than anything else. But I mean, this is what I would advise, is not do a crazy marketing push for a show that you don't expect to be the next coming of Super.
While this might just be conjecture, I think this potentially explains the perplexing decisions made up until now. Because the powers that be don't believe in this story as much as they might for the second coming of Super, the fiscally responsible move therefore would be to minimize potential losses through risk. As we know from Toriyama's own words, Daima began as a very simple spin-off. It was conceived of as a small story akin to the Naruto spin-off of Rock Lee and his ninja pals. But having liked the idea of exploring the demon world, Toriyama stepped in and totally overhauled the project on every single level, expanding its scope and turning it into a mainline entry, a grand adventure series that we all know he favors over pure action. And while I personally love Dragon Ball Daima's story thus far, the extensive history of the Dragon Ball franchise does unfortunately indicate that Toriyama's love for adventure does not match the wider audience's appetite. If you were to form a list of the least popular arcs in Dragon Ball's catalog, you'd see arcs like Peel Off and the Red Ribbon Army appearing time and time.
I actually don't know anybody who's seen Dragon Ball. I'm the only one who has seen and liked Dragon Ball. And out of everybody that I know, the first Dragon Ball, I mean, everybody I know, like my brother, my ex-roommate, best friend, they all love the Dragon Ball series, have never seen the original Dragon Ball because it's not the same. And they haven't seen all of the GT episodes either because it's not the same. It's Z and Super. They don't want all this adventure crap. Unfortunately, that's what Akira Toriyama likes. That's not what we like.
Time again. Two stories that centered around Toriyama's favorite approach, adventure. However, even the man himself openly confesses that this approach just isn't very popular. Heck, the very first arc of Dragon Ball GT centered around adventure was so unpopular that they threw the entire story out the window only a few episodes into its run and pivoted to something the masses actually liked. So it's also entirely possible that due to Daima intentionally harkening back to the least popular elements of Dragon Ball, Toei and Shueisha felt it necessary to take precaution, and it's hard to argue with that if that's the case.
Let me put it to you this way. Bleach is getting almost double the social media engagement as Daima. Most people would not say Bleach is doing the best in the world right now. I think this arc of Bleach is great. I'm really enjoying myself. Yeah. I'm happy so many people are watching it, but I wouldn't say that, like, you can't hold Bleach up to Dragon Ball in terms of popularity of the franchise overall.
So that's the thing. Dragon Ball Daima is doing okay right now, but it's not living up to the potential we've seen the Dragon Ball brand hit with the vast majority of its modern entries so far.
It seems too childish, too girly. Like, men aren't gonna want to watch this, and I know a lot of men who like Dragon Ball. Super, mostly.
It's coasting by thanks to its hardcore fan base, and it remains to see how things may pan out once the international dubs begin to roll out. There's certainly a chance it will find its audience and retroactively gain popularity, but it's hard to imagine a world in which Goku vs. Goma becomes a public event like Goku vs. Jiren. Daima is a short series. It does not have the luxury of accumulating hype over the span of multiple years, and so even if it does become popular, it may face a very common issue these days: binge format versus weekly releases. People very well may discover the show later on down the line, binge it all, and enjoy it, but that love and adoration just can't quite compete in the cultural landscape in the same way that an anime spread over years does. The persistent conversation and week-to-week discourse just doesn't exist in the same way unless you are extremely lucky and ignite a passion throughout the world. Unfortunately, it's the latter that concerns me. As a product, I adore Dragon Ball Daima. In fact, judging from what I've seen so far, it might very well be some of the most well-written modern Dragon Ball yet released. The quality of the series isn't being called into question, but I think the appetite of a large contingent of the Dragon Ball fanbase is. Dragon Ball in an adventure format doesn't seem to have the same hook as its battle-focused alternative, but more than anything, this is a tale that ignores the wants of its most recently cultivated contingent of fans. As an old head myself, I think it's easy for me to forget that there's an entirely new generation that sees this series very differently from me. One who didn't grow up with the same Dragon Ball that I did. For them, they are nostalgic not for Dragon Ball Z, but for Super. Super is their Dragon Ball.
That's crazy to me, actually. I have not thought about it. Has been so long. Like, I was a little kid watching Dragon Ball Z, and I am 30 years old now, basically. Like, there's a whole different Dragon Ball that kids look at, and it's Super. I look at Z and compare everything to Z, but now kids are comparing all the new stuff to Super, because Super was the old show to them.
And they just want more of it. And I can relate to that feeling. I've been there. That's quite the uphill battle Daima faces right now. Over the coming weeks, it has to try to pull in an audience unsure about its genre, it has to appeal to fans who just wanted more of Super, and if and when the big international marketing push comes, it needs to hope and pray it delivers on those aspects so this newfound accessibility catapults it to success. It's an enormous ask, but one I am extremely interested to follow as time goes by. But the question remains, do you think it will succeed? I certainly hope so, but that'll do it for this week.
Define succeed, because I think technically it will be a success, but not in the eyes of Toei. I think they're going to kill this project going forward. I think that what is being made is all that's going to be made. There's not going to be a sequel to it or a continuation. What's there is there, and they might mention it in some future episodes of a future series. I hope that they bring back Super. That's all they need to do. That's all I want from them. I don't need these spin-off shows. I don't need a whole bunch of shit video games. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero was great, but that's 1 in like 10. I'm gonna give this guy a like and a subscribe. Totally not Mark. He's pretty good. I like this video a lot. I like his voice.